serve on with a group in Washington, and there's a history to it. In the 1980s, in Washington, the Congress approved that there would be a memorial to the Black Revolutionary War heroes. And Bud Brown, our representative in Congress, was on that committee, and they passed it unanimously, I guess, but nothing ever happened, which is kind of the way things happen in Washington, I think. But now there is a new committee that's a wonderful group. They're, I think I put their name on here. They are the National Liberty Memorial Preservation Act. They actually have been given the land on the National Mall for this wonderful memorial that they would put out, which is long past due, I think. But at any rate, you don't have to sign anything, but I have put a little paper here with a petition to be sent to Jim Jordan, Rob Portman, and Sherrod Brown. I have letters ready to mail to them, asking them to support it all they can. And I'm so thrilled to be on that, and it's our Mr. Stanhope that got me there. Somebody in Washington heard about me, and for some reason they called me and talked to me, and I've been working with them on this. So if you're willing, I have a pen and with this, and each one will go to a different person. So if you don't mind signing it, and I don't think we need to put our names and addresses and all that. I think a name and where you're from might be sufficient for that. I don't think we want people writing to us about other things if they have all our information or calling us on the phone. I get awfully tired of people calling me on the phone and telling me how to vote. But anyway, if you don't mind, I'd like to pass those around while we're doing the presentations. The other thing is, if I may I ask, how many of you are descendants of Mr. Stanhope, or that you have a part of that? I know you are. I know you. Yeah, I think all of you are one way or another related. And I've joined the family, sorry. But I'm asking if you're willing to, I need to talk to people. And so if you're willing to, give me your address, phone, and email if you have it. I'm in contact with a lot of people, but I'd like to have more names and people that I could contact with questions and so forth. Art and I have known each other for a lot of years, but if you don't mind, I'd like to, and my friend with the last name of a bad guy, that's what he told me. Anyway, he'll be passing these around for us. And thank you. We had that DAR with 3 different chapters went together and added a medal representing the work that he did and who he was in the cemetery in '08. And we had a lot of family members, you can see. And I will tell you frankly, the only person I know is Marilyn Ivory. And so all these years, I have mourned the fact that I didn't have anybody's name. There are children and all. And so what we did this week, thank you to Goldman, we have letters on all the people, and we have numbers on all the people, because some of them were turned away and aren't in both pictures. So if you recognize anybody in there, I would love to know their names. It's embarrassing to have a picture like that and only know one name of it and of that. So those are there, and I have a picture and some material on when we did the presentation of the memorial plaque. But and I have my cards here if anybody would want to contact me at some time. The only thing is they've had to change my email, and I'm not sure you can read what I wrote. But anyway, there are things that I'm going to ask you to do, and if you feel like getting up when it's my turn to speak, why, just get up and do whatever, but I really appreciate having any help you can give me on this. I'm tremendously proud to have been asked to help with that monument in Washington. I think this is really special, and it recognizes not only our county and our Mr. Stanhope, which is how I came by it. I learned of him in a pageant for the county. And I chose to do it by telling about different people through the years. And I was delighted to hear about Addison White because he's one of the people that I put in the play. And Richard Stanhope was another. They are our heroes. We have a lot of heroes today, a lot of people from Champaign County. I happen to have come upon Richard Stanhope, and he is my hero. And I have been trying to fight the people who have not given him the proper recognition or who failed to give him recognition. This is a portrait that was taken of him, we don't know when, but he lived to be 114. I don't think he looks 114 there, but I'm guessing maybe he was a little younger at the time. But I have been told, earlier I spoke to several of you about the group in Washington that is trying to erect a memorial to the black persons who served in the Revolutionary War. And the man who's in charge of that group told me he believes that this is the only portrait of a black person from the Revolutionary War in existence. And we have to thank the local descendants of Richard Stanhope for giving that to our historical society, because that picture would not exist had they not offered it for our group and for our history. I'm very proud to have been allowed to make that copy for all of us to enjoy. I kind of feel like he's watching us today to see what I might do. I'm a little concerned. And I wish to say that what was before me is a very tough group of acts to follow, and I certainly can't sing like that wonderful young woman. I did make some copies. I'm not sure they're enough for everybody, but I put together a timeline, trying to figure out where he came from, where he was. There are more things we don't know about him than we know, but there are an awful lot of things that are pretty wonderful about him. One of the things that you may know about is that there was a change in our calendars in George Washington's time. They had been going by a Julian calendar, and then the world decided to adopt a Gregorian calendar, which changed every date that we had. So we really don't even know for sure the date that Richard Stanhope was born, because we don't know which calendar they were using at the time. So the accepted date for his birth is March 1st, 1748. Wow. Now, I don't understand, because somebody wrote that Stanhope chose George Washington's birthday for the date of his birth, but George Washington was born in February by either one of the calendars, so I haven't figured that part out yet. Maybe it was February 29th or something. At any rate, he went by several names: Stanhope, Stand Up, Stand Up with two N's, and then eventually they say that his daughter said she wanted something more appropriate, and she wished to be called Stanhope. And so in our time, we have always known him as Richard Stanhope. We don't know a lot about his birth. But one of the things that has been claimed for him, remember, I think he was a brilliant man, but remember, slaves weren't allowed to learn to read or write, which is some kind of criminal thing as far as I'm concerned. But he was a brilliant man, but we don't have anything that he might have written to tell us a story. And so we have to take our story of him from several different places. So we have heard that he was the son of an African woman that came in from Africa. We also hear that he was a slave of Washington and was given to Washington as his the person to be accompanying him all the time. And I find that very interesting because there is an age difference there that would make him very young if he accompanied Washington out to the Ohio countries for his surveys. But he may well have done that. I don't know what the mores of the day would have been. But I firmly believe that the things that are told about him are true. I think he was with George Washington. I think there's no question of that. There certainly isn't any in my mind. I've been working on this since 1976 when I wrote the pageant. But I've found so many things, and my house is just full of big boxes full of Richard Stanhope. Eventually, we think that he was with Washington during the pre-war and war times. In his application, which was refused for a pension when he was 112, he was denied this. He named the battles he was in. He named the injuries that he suffered. In Long Island, he had a ball went through his knee, and I wonder how he handled the rest of the war, but he was in it. He later had a gash on his arm from a British saber or a sword. I don't know, really don't know the difference. But he could state in that statement, when he was 112, he knew those things. Now, how would a black man out in the Ohio far lands away know all these things if he hadn't been there? Right. I'm sorry, I think that was, when it was denied, they said it was because he couldn't name his officer. Well, his officer was George Washington, for heaven's sake. And I find that very annoying. And someday I hope to live long enough to make something get changed on that. They have told me in Washington that someday I'm going to find a little piece of paper that proves all this. But I believe it in my heart, I really do. He has been named as Washington's bodyguard, his companion, his chief of slaves at Mount Vernon, and or his personal valet. I think we can kind of choose whatever we want there. Some of the pictures are said to have had him in them. There was one in the National Gallery of Fine Arts. There is a black man pictured at Washington's deathbed. There are several names attached to those two pictures, and I'm not at all positive that Stanhope was there. I think he was given his freedom before the time of Washington's death. I can't prove that because we don't know where he was because nobody wrote it down. But I recently was in a hospital for about a month, and I had a book on Washington, and it must have been supposed to be there because at the very end I found a paragraph that made me so happy I was whooping around in the hospital. It turns out that Washington wanted not to free his slaves at the end of his life, but what he wanted to do, he owned lots of land in Ohio, or at least he thought he did. At one time he claimed all the, imagine this, all the land between the Miami River and the Scioto. I don't think he had all that land, I really don't, but he claimed it, he had surveyed it. But anyway, what he wanted to do, he wanted to give each of his slaves some money and the land and free them to go into the Ohio lands where they would be accepted. Before we became a state, long before we became a state. And I have to think maybe he sent his trusted servant and his family out to Ohio to see if it would work. Now I can't prove any of that, but it fits what I think. And it fits the empty places. I keep thinking about this man. He was ordained as a minister in the Potomac River. So we know when that happened. That's on record. But when he went where, we don't know. The first time he shows up in print is in Madison County in 1807, and he had a warranty. Now, my understanding of the warranty is that this is a person that was not an officer, but served in the Revolutionary War. And I'm going to play that for everything I can. I'm going to get this man named a patriot yet. But that's one of the things I'm looking at as a possibility, because the definition of warranty was that they were a non-commissioned officer. And that is in the application for his land in Madison County. And I'm really hopeful about that. He came to this area, he got smart. I think he got desperately cheated on that land. The engineer for Madison County made a map for me of what the land was that they gave him with his warranty. It looks like a crown. How do you farm something that looks like that? Mm-hmm. I was so upset when I saw that, and as was the engineer. He said they really cheated him, didn't they? But he came to Champaign County, so that's good. And he became very well known here and much loved and admired. And they wrote about him in the papers. And on the 50th anniversary of the founding of our country on July 4th, he sat on the dais with the other people that were celebrating that in the center of Urbana. And that makes me so happy. And it makes me feel so good about our county. He was served as a Baptist minister at both Myrtle Tree and Kings Creek, and they said it was particularly good with young people. I guess he kind of gave them hell, but he was very, very strong in his faith, and we are so grateful to have. How is it that we have this wonderful, outstanding man in our midst? I just think this is so miraculous. He and his wife, Gracie, registered on May 5th in 1807. The free black persons had to register, and that was the date he and his wife registered. I think she's his third wife. He had 28 kids, so there've got to be a lot of descendants. And I would like to know more descendants, and I've asked you to sign up if you, I hope those papers are still circulating among you, because I really would like to have names and phone numbers so I can call and ask you questions. He was noted as an early settler in Salem Township. That one of the obituaries said he died in Jackson Township, and I don't have anything that says he ever lived there. So I don't know why he was dying there. We think he died in Belle Fountain in his daughter's home. And I think that's the one that wanted to be named Stanhope and not Stanhope. He served in the War of 1812. Hull's army marched from Urbana to a terrible defeat. But he received another cut, which you can see. It's under his eye over here, and it was a British saber. Now, that I know it was a saber. And they were trying to make him captive when Hull's army was gathered and defeated. And our Mr. Stanhope said he wasn't having any of that, and he was a drover, or a man that had the provisions for the army, and he drove the wagon with the provisions. And he somehow freed a horse. I kind of think maybe he had his own horse attached there. But again, I can't prove anything like that. But anyway, he rode off on his horse. He said, "You're not taking me." But apparently, they did catch him under the eye before he left them. We have records of the sale and purchase of land here in this county. He lived in the Concord Township, and we're extremely proud because there is a map that exists that shows his land, and it says a servant of George Washington under his name. And I think that's a biggie. I think that's just really wonderful that we have that. The map itself is hanging in the Historical Society. I'm very proud of our Historical Society. We really do things very well. Excuse me while I turn the page. We have him on the federal census in 1850, and it says, Richard Stanhope, he still was going by that, age 102, male, black, from Virginia. And Charity is the wife that's mentioned. I think she's his wife. There were three, and I didn't have the names of all of them. And she was 62, female, black, from Maryland. Then we have three children. David was 20, Levi was 17, and Jerry was 13. And Jerry is mentioned later in the annals in the library. We have all copies of all the newspapers. And he's mentioned, and he died in Kansas, and it said he left his family in very good condition, so apparently he made some money. He died after his name appeared in many publications, and I have these books over here are summations of everything that I have found that has been published. And there were a lot of people wrote about him. There was a man called Specs Jr. He was the editor of the paper. He wrote wonderful stories about what he had seen. He actually saw the piece of paper signed by Washington that was given to Stanhope. And he also saw his cartridge box. And I am told by people that know about guns, I know nothing about them, but I was told that the cartridge box was the most important thing that a man in that period of time would have held on to for a lifetime. And this Mr. Specs, that wasn't his real name, but that was what he went by. But he had seen those things. Now that man was not a liar. He signed the petition for George Washington, for him having been part of George Washington's military family. But in that year that he applied for that pension, you have to remember that Washington, D.C. is a southern city. and it was before the Civil War. And although we know the man's history, we know that he was a good Christian man and would not lie. We know that there were people who spoke up for him and signed his petition for that pension. But I think they discarded it. I think they put it in the round file over in Washington. And that's so sad. Of all the people in the world, he was above anybody else, almost, other than maybe Lafayette. that for the things he did and what he represented, to find him just pushed away. You can't name your birth date. You can't name who your official officer was. Crazy. And still, it upsets me to this day when I read that. But anyway, there have been many articles that were written about him in his time. Certainly the people of Urbana and Champaign County adored this man. Everything I've read leads me to believe that. And I think what a wonderful heritage we have in this man and what he has done and what he brought to us. And let me tell you, that has sustained through the ages, because you look at the people, a man on the Supreme Court judge in Columbus, and all the people, the great musicians that have come from this town. These people are to be, I guess I like the word adored. I think we have really special people. There are a lot of mysteries, and there are some things that are awful that have happened, and I've experienced them. The ladies of Mount Vernon make it their planned thing to make fun of the people of Champaign County, and particularly our DAR, because they think that this guy was a fraud. And they have made fun of me in print for my beliefs and the things that I stand for. And they have done that, and it even came out in a book about Barnum, of Barnum and Bailey, about how these foolish people think that this man was not a fraud. And we have lived with that, and which is really, really sad and dumb. But you will see that different places. People just really don't understand. There is one volume that was put out that's about this thick. It's called the Forgotten Patriots. And it names all of the Indians, all the people that they can think of that participated to some extent in aiding the American effort in the Revolutionary War. And his name is in there, saying that he offered a petition for his pension from the state of Pennsylvania. It isn't in there from Urbana, it's in there from Pennsylvania. Now, the only thing I can think that might happen, we know that the slaves from Mount Vernon were alternated in and out of Valley Forge and in and out of the president's residence when it was in Philadelphia. So that's a mystery that we may never solve. And I was so pleased that I found that little paragraph in the book about Washington. I've read all these Washington books, hoping to find some little glimmer. And I think that idea that he may have been sent out here first to try it out and see if it worked. But can you imagine leaving Virginia and going all the distance to Ohio, not knowing where you were going, how you were going to live all the way out here? And what he did, I wish we had a journal. It would be so wonderful to read that story and find out how he became acquainted. The people loved him here. There's a story when he was digging a well, but the well fell in on him. And they got him out of the well, And he went right back in it. And they said, well, why would you do that? And he said, well, it takes more than that to take me out. Or something to that effect. He must have been a wonderful person to know. And I am so grateful that I have had the opportunity to study him. And I certainly hope to live long enough to see him declared a patriot, because of all the people in this world, I think he's due that. So thank you for listening to me today. Up here of the time. Now there may not be enough for everybody, but you're welcome to take them. I thought you might like to have a copy. My cards, if you want to contact me for some reason, they're there. But my email changed, and you can hardly read what I wrote. But thank you all so much. This was wonderful, and I'm so proud of all of you, and so proud of the heritage that you brought to us today. I think that's so needed. And when she kept saying that when she kept saying, tell the next generation, do that. I worked in Springfield, and we had Black History Month, and I did that every time. I'd say, please learn your history. They say we were slaves, and I'd say, how do you know that? How do you know that? You might not have been, but I said, even if you were, think about those people, how strong they had to be to survive, let alone produce you. And I think that's so important. And I will tell you, I'm not sure I was successful in telling them that, because I brought in a picture of my mother and dad, and they laughed themselves silly over my mother's hairdo in the 20s. So again, thank you, and thank you so much for asking me. I've been over the moon, sorry.